The morning sun glinted off the polished glass windows of Elegance Jewelers, a high-end boutique nestled in the heart of downtown's luxury district. The store's facade was a masterpiece of modern design, sleek marble columns framing a doorway that whispered exclusivity. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across display cases filled with diamonds, emeralds, and sapphires, each piece meticulously arranged to beckon the city's elite. The air carried the faint scent of polished wood and wealth, a silent promise that only the privileged belonged here. Malik Thompson stepped through the revolving door, his tailored navy suit moving with him like a second skin. At 42, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had built an empire from nothing. His shoes, handmade Italian leather, clicked softly against the marble floor as he adjusted his cufflinks. Simple, understated, but engraved with the initials of his company, Thompson Enterprises. His presence was magnetic, though not ostentatious. His dark skin contrasted sharply with the store's pristine whiteness, a fact that didn't escape him as he scanned the room. The boutique was nearly empty, save for a middle-aged couple browsing engagement rings and a lone sales associate behind the counter. The associate, a woman in her late 20s with a severe bun and a name tag reading Claire, glanced up from her phone. Her eyes narrowed briefly as they landed on Malik, a flicker of something, judgment perhaps, crossing her face before she returned to her screen. Malik, accustomed to such glances, didn't flinch. He'd learned long ago to let them slide off him like water off glass. He approached a display case near the center of the store, where a sapphire necklace caught his eye. The piece was exquisite, a teardrop pendant set in white gold, surrounded by a halo of diamonds that sparkled like captured stars. It reminded him of his late mother's eyes, deep and vibrant, and he imagined it as a gift for his sister, Aisha, whose birthday was approaching. He leaned closer, studying the craftsmanship, when Claire's voice cut through the silence. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her tone clipped. "Can I help you with something?" She'd moved from behind the counter, standing a few feet away, her arms crossed. The question wasn't an offer. It was a challenge, laced with an unspoken assumption that he didn't belong. Malik straightened, meeting her gaze with a calm smile. "Yes, I'd like to see that sapphire necklace," he said, nodding toward the display. His voice was smooth, measured, the kind that commanded boardrooms without raising its pitch. Claire hesitated, her lips pursing as if weighing whether to indulge him. "That piece is part of our exclusive collection," she said, emphasizing exclusive in a way that felt deliberate. "It's quite expensive. Perhaps you'd prefer something from our more accessible range." She gestured vaguely toward a corner of the store where simpler, less costly items were displayed. Malik's smile didn't waver, though his eyes sharpened. He'd faced this before, countless times in fact, microaggressions dressed up as politeness, assumptions cloaked in customer service jargon. He could have called her out, could have dismantled her condescension with a single sentence. But he chose patience, for now. "I'd like to see the sapphire," he repeated, his tone still courteous but firmer, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Claire's smile tightened, but she nodded, retrieving a key from her pocket and unlocking the case. As she lifted the necklace, her movements were deliberate, almost performative, as if she expected him to change his mind or reveal himself as an imposter. She placed the piece on a velvet tray and slid it across the counter, her eyes never leaving him. "It's $45,000, she said, her voice carrying a hint of skepticism. "Custom design, one of a kind. We typically require a deposit for pieces like this." Malik nodded, his fingers brushing the pendant as he examined it. The craftsmanship was impeccable, but he wasn't here to be sold on the piece. He already knew its value. He was testing something else entirely. "Tell me about the designer," he said, his tone conversational. "What's the story behind this piece?" Claire blinked, caught off guard by the question. She fumbled for a moment, glancing at a small card beside the display. "Well, it's designed by our in-house team, inspired by European elegance, I believe. Very sophisticated." Her words were vague, rehearsed, and lacked the passion of someone who truly understood the art. Malik tilted his head, his expression neutral, but his mind cataloguing every detail. He knew the designer, Elena Moreau, a rising star in the jewelry world, whose work he'd personally approved for acquisition when his company purchased Elegance Jewelers 6 months ago. Claire's lackluster response confirmed what he'd suspected. The staff here were coasting, relying on the store's reputation rather than their own expertise. It was a problem he'd come to address, though no one in the boutique knew it yet. Before he could press further, the door chimed, and a new customer entered, a white man in his 50s, dressed in a slightly wrinkled blazer and khakis. His hair was thinning, his watch flashy but not particularly expensive. Claire's demeanor shifted instantly. She straightened, her smile warming, as she greeted him with a cheerful, "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Elegance Jewelers. How can I assist you today?" The contrast was stark. Malik's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, watching as Claire practically abandoned him to hover near the new customer. The man, who introduced himself as Richard, began browsing, and Claire eagerly offered to show him the same exclusive collection she'd hesitated to share with Malik. The sapphire necklace remained on the counter, forgotten. Malik's phone buzzed in his pocket, a reminder of the board meeting scheduled later that day. He ignored it, his focus now entirely on the scene unfolding before him. This wasn't just about one employee's bias. It was a symptom of a larger issue, one he'd suspected when he'd reviewed the store's declining sales figures and customer satisfaction scores. Elegance Jewelers was a crown jewel in his portfolio, but it was tarnishing, and he needed to understand why. He decided to push further. "Excuse me, Claire," he said, his voice cutting through her conversation with Richard. "I'd like to speak with the manager." Claire froze, her smile faltering. "The manager isn't available right now," she said, her tone defensive. "I can assist you with anything you need." "I'd prefer the manager," Malik said, his voice calm but unyielding. He leaned against the counter, his presence commanding despite his relaxed posture. "I have some questions about the store's operations." Claire's eyes darted to Richard, as if seeking his approval before returning to Malik. "Sir, I'm sure I can handle whatever concerns you have. The manager is very busy." Malik raised an eyebrow, his patience thinning. "I'm sure they'll make time," he said. "Tell them Malik Thompson is here." The name didn't register with Claire. She didn't flinch, didn't pause to consider its significance. Instead, she sighed, clearly exasperated, and muttered something about unnecessary escalations before disappearing into the back office. Richard, meanwhile, shot Malik a curious glance, as if trying to place him but unwilling to engage. Malik waited, his fingers drumming lightly on the counter. He wasn't angry, not yet. Anger was a luxury he rarely allowed himself. Instead, he was calculating, piecing together the puzzle of this store's dysfunction. The sales staff's attitude, the lack of product knowledge, the subtle but unmistakable bias, it all pointed to a leadership failure. And as the CEO of Thompson Enterprises, the parent company that owned Elegance Jewelers, he was here to fix it. Minutes later, a man emerged from the back office, his expression a mix of irritation and curiosity. He was in his early 50s, with a receding hairline and a tie slightly askew. His name tag read, Stephen, Store Manager. He approached Malik with a forced smile, his eyes scanning him up and down, lingering on his suit as if trying to gauge his worth. "Mr. Thompson, I presume," Stephen said, his tone polite but tinged with skepticism. "I'm Stephen Hargrove, the manager. Claire tells me you have some questions about our operations." Malik nodded, his smile returning. "I do," he said. "I'm curious about how you train your staff to handle customers, particularly those who don't fit the usual profile." Stephen's smile faltered, but he recovered quickly. "We pride ourselves on exceptional service for all our clients," he said, his words practiced. "If there's been a misunderstanding, I'd be happy to address it." Malik's eyes locked onto Stephen's, unblinking. "A misunderstanding," he repeated, letting the word hang in the air. "Let's discuss that." The conversation that followed was a masterclass in restraint. Malik didn't raise his voice, didn't reveal his identity, didn't need to. He asked pointed questions about staff training, customer profiling, sales protocols, each one exposing gaps in Stephen's leadership. Stephen, unaware of who he was speaking to, grew increasingly defensive, his answers vague and evasive. Claire hovered nearby, her unease palpable as she sensed the conversation spiraling beyond her control. Malik's questions weren't random. He'd spent weeks reviewing reports from Elegance Jewelers, noting inconsistencies in inventory, declining customer retention, and a troubling pattern of complaints about discriminatory treatment. Today's visit was unannounced, a deliberate choice to see the store as it truly operated without the polish of a prepared staff. What he found confirmed his suspicions, a culture of complacency rooted in outdated assumptions about who deserved respect. As Stephen rambled about standard procedures, Malik's mind shifted to the bigger picture. Thompson Enterprises owned dozens of luxury brands, from fashion to jewelry to real estate, each acquired through Malik's relentless drive and strategic vision. Elegance Jewelers was a recent addition purchased to diversify the portfolio, but it was underperforming. Today's visit wasn't just about a necklace, it was about reclaiming a brand that had lost its way. The morning wore on, and the store began to fill with more customers. Malik stepped back, letting Stephen return to his duties, but he didn't leave. Instead, he lingered, observing the staff's interactions, noting which employees engaged authentically and which relied on stereotypes. Claire, for her part, avoided him, focusing on other customers with an almost exaggerated enthusiasm. By noon, Malik had seen enough. He slipped out of the store, his expression unreadable, and made a call to his assistant Lauren. "I need a meeting with the regional director this afternoon," he said, "and pull the personnel files for Elegance Jewelers, all of them." As he stepped into his car, the sapphire necklace still on his mind, Malik felt a familiar fire ignite. This wasn't just about one store or one employee, it was about integrity, about ensuring every customer who walked through those doors felt valued. He'd built his empire on that principle, and he wasn't about to let it erode. The afternoon sun hung low, casting long shadows across the city as Malik's car pulled up to the Thompson Enterprises headquarters, a sleek glass tower that dominated the skyline. The building was a testament to his journey, from a kid in a struggling neighborhood to a billionaire CEO whose name was synonymous with innovation and excellence. Inside, the lobby buzzed with activity, employees moving with purpose, unaware that their leader was about to shake things up. Malik's office on the top floor was a study in understated power, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city, a mahogany desk cluttered with reports, and a single framed photo of his mother, whose resilience had shaped him. He settled into his chair, his mind still replaying the morning at Elegance Jewelers. The sapphire necklace, Claire's dismissive tone, Stephen's evasive answers, they were symptoms of a deeper problem, one he intended to root out. Lauren, his assistant of 10 years, knocked and entered, a tablet in hand. "The regional director's on her way," she said, her tone brisk but warm. "And I've got the personnel files. Anything specific you're looking for?" "Patterns," Malik said, leaning back. "Complaints, performance reviews, training records. I want to know who's running that store and why it's failing." Lauren nodded, tapping her tablet to send the files to his screen. "You went in undercover again, didn't you?" she said, a knowing smile tugging at her lips. Malik chuckled, the sound low and rich. "You know me too well." "It's why you pay me," she quipped, leaving him to his work. The files painted a grim picture. Elegance Jewelers had once been a beacon of luxury, but under Stephen's management it had stagnated. Customer complaints cited rude staff, inconsistent service, and, in several cases, allegations of racial bias. Training records were outdated, with no evidence of diversity or sensitivity programs. Sales figures were down 15% year over year, a sharp contrast to the growth of other Thompson Enterprises brands. Malik's jaw tightened as he read. He'd built his company on merit and respect, hiring people from all backgrounds and giving them the tools to succeed. To see one of his brands falter because of prejudice and incompetence was unacceptable. He closed the files and prepared for his meeting with the regional director, Vanessa Carter. Vanessa arrived promptly, her sharp blazer and no-nonsense demeanor a stark contrast to Stephen's disheveled appearance. She oversaw Thompson Enterprises' retail division, including Elegance Jewelers, and had a reputation for getting results. But today, Malik wasn't interested in her usual reports, he wanted answers. "Vanessa," he began, gesturing for her to sit, "tell me about Elegance Jewelers. Why is it underperforming?" Vanessa hesitated, sensing the weight behind his question. "It's a challenging market," she said carefully. "Luxury retail is competitive and—" "Cut the corporate speak," Malik interrupted, his tone firm but not unkind. "I was at the downtown store this morning. The staff treated me like I didn't belong, and the manager was clueless about his own operations. This isn't about the market, it's about leadership." Vanessa's eyes widened, but she recovered quickly. "You went in yourself?" she asked, then shook her head. "I should have known. Look, I've been aware of some issues, but Stephen's been with the company for years. He's experienced and—" "Experience doesn't excuse incompetence," Malik said, "or bias. I want a full audit of that store, staff, policies, everything, and I want it done today." Vanessa nodded, her expression serious. "I'll get on it, but, Malik, if there's a cultural issue, it might not be just Stephen. The whole team could need retraining or replacement." "That's what I'm counting on you to find out," Malik said. "And one more thing. I'm going back to the store this afternoon. I want you there. Don't tell them I'm coming." Vanessa raised an eyebrow but didn't question him. "Understood," she said, rising to leave. "I'll have the audit started within the hour." As she left, Malik turned to the window, the city sprawling below him. He thought of his mother, who'd worked 3 jobs to keep him and Aisha fed, who'd taught him that respect wasn't given. It was earned through hard work and integrity. Elegance Jewelers wasn't just a business to him. It was a symbol of the world he wanted to create, one where everyone had a seat at the table. He wasn't about to let it fall short. By late afternoon, Malik returned to Elegance Jewelers, this time with Vanessa in tow. The store was busier now, with several customers browsing and 2 additional staff members assisting. Claire was still there, her expression a mix of boredom and irritation as she helped a young woman try on earrings. Stephen was nowhere in sight, likely in the back office. Malik didn't announce himself. Instead, he wandered toward the sapphire necklace again, letting Vanessa observe the staff's interactions. She took notes on her phone, her eyes sharp as she catalogued every detail. Malik, meanwhile, caught Claire's attention once more. "Back again," she said, her tone less hostile but still guarded. "Did you have more questions about the necklace?" "Actually," Malik said, "I'd like to buy it, and I'd like you to wrap it up for me." Claire blinked, clearly surprised. "You want to purchase it?" she asked, as if confirming she'd heard correctly. "Yes," Malik said, pulling out a black credit card with no visible limit. "And I'd like it done quickly. I have a meeting to get to." Claire's eyes widened at the card, but she recovered, nodding stiffly. "Of course, sir. I'll need to verify the payment and—" "No need," Vanessa interjected, stepping forward. "Mr. Thompson's card is more than good here." Claire froze, her gaze darting between Malik and Vanessa. "I'm sorry, who—" Vanessa smiled, but there was steel in her voice. "Vanessa Carter, Regional Director, and this is Malik Thompson, CEO of Thompson Enterprises, the company that owns this store." The air in the boutique seemed to still. Claire's face paled, her mouth opening and closing as she struggled for words. The other customers glanced over, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Malik remained calm, his expression unreadable as he watched Claire process the revelation. I didn't realize," Claire stammered, her hands trembling as she reached for the necklace. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Thompson, "Save it," Malik said, his voice low but firm. "I don't need apologies. I need this store to reflect the values of my company. That starts with how you treat every customer who walks through that door." Claire nodded, her face flushed with embarrassment. Vanessa stepped in, her tone professional but cold. "Claire, we'll discuss this later. For now, process Mr. Thompson's purchase." As Claire hurried to comply, Malik turned to Vanessa. "I want a full report by tonight," he said quietly. and I want a plan to fix this. Training, hiring, whatever it takes. Vanessa nodded. You'll have it. Malik's gaze swept the store, landing on the sapphire necklace as Claire wrapped it in a velvet box. He wasn't just buying a gift for Aisha, he was sending a message. Elegance Jewelers would either rise to his standards or be rebuilt from the ground up. The evening lights of the city twinkled through the windows of Malik's office as he reviewed Vanessa's report. The audit was thorough, detailing a litany of issues at Elegance Jewelers: inadequate training, outdated policies, and a culture that prioritized appearances over substance. Several employees, including Claire, had received complaints about their attitude toward customers, particularly those who didn't fit the typical luxury clientele. Stephen's file was the most damning. Years of coasting on seniority, with no initiative to improve the store's performance or address staff issues. Malik leaned back, the sapphire necklace now in a sleek black box on his desk. He'd purchased it not just for Aisha, but as a reminder of why he'd walked into the store that morning. The necklace was a symbol of his mother's strength, of his own journey, of the standards he refused to compromise. Vanessa sat across from him, her expression resolute. "I've already started the process," she said. "Stephen's out. I've recommended a new manager from our Chicago branch. She's young, sharp, and has a track record of turning stores around. As for the staff, I'm scheduling mandatory training, with a focus on diversity and customer respect. We'll also be recruiting new talent to replace anyone who can't meet the standard." Malik nodded, his fingers tapping the desk. "Good, but I want more than training. I want a culture shift. Every employee needs to understand that no one is turned away or judged in my stores, not on my watch." "Understood," Vanessa said. "I've also drafted a new customer service protocol emphasizing equal treatment and product knowledge. It'll be rolled out across all our retail brands, not just Elegance." Malik's eyes softened slightly. "You're on top of it, as always." Vanessa smiled faintly. "You didn't make it easy going in there unannounced, but it was the right call. We wouldn't have seen the real issues otherwise." Malik's thoughts drifted back to Claire's reaction, to the moment her world shifted when she learned who he was. He didn't relish her humiliation, but he hoped it was a wake-up call. People could change, he'd seen it happen, but only if they were willing to confront their biases. As Vanessa left to finalize the changes, Malik picked up the necklace box and headed to his car. Aisha's birthday dinner was in an hour, and he wanted to see her face when she opened the gift. The drive to her apartment was short, the city lights blurring past as he reflected on the day. It had started with a simple visit to a store, but it had become something more, a reminder of why he did this, why he'd fought so hard to build Thompson Enterprises. Aisha's apartment was warm and lively, filled with the laughter of friends and family. When Malik arrived, she greeted him with a hug, her eyes sparkling with the same vibrance as the sapphire. Over dinner, he handed her the box, watching as she opened it and gasped. "Malik, this is stunning," she said, holding the necklace to the light. "Where did you find it?" He smiled, the weight of the day lifting slightly. "A little place called Elegance Jewelers. They're under new management." Aisha raised an eyebrow, sensing there was more to the story, but she didn't press. Instead, she fastened the necklace around her neck, the sapphire glowing against her skin. "You always know how to make a statement," she said, grinning. Malik chuckled, but his mind was already on the future. Elegance Jewelers would be the first step in a broader overhaul of his retail brands. He'd ensure every store reflected his vision: excellence, integrity, and respect for all. The day had been long, but it had reminded him of his purpose, and that was worth more than any jewel in the case. By the time he left Aisha's, the city was quiet, the stars visible above the skyline. Malik drove home, the necklace's box empty but his resolve full. Tomorrow, he'd start the work of transforming Elegance Jewelers, and with it, the legacy he was building, one customer, one store, one day at a time. If you liked this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with others so they can learn something from it too.